Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. Today is Thursday, January 24th, 2013. I'm Darko. Alright, I'm going to continue here with the economy, and this will probably be the last video, just doing, I think, 2 videos today. And then tomorrow I'll come back, I'll probably end up doing like 4 videos, because I have a lot of news that's piling up as far as the Middle East and Africa and all that goes. Police state. So, unions hit lowest membership point in 7 decades. Says a new report shows that American labor unions have experienced their worst decline in membership in nearly 80 years, mainly due to losses of public sector workers. So total membership dropped by about 400,000 workers to 14 million, with the majority losses attributed to government workers, including teachers, firefighters, and public administrators. It says our still struggling economy, weak laws, and political as well as ideological assaults have taken a toll on union membership, and in the process have also imperiled economic security and good middle-class jobs, says the AFL-CIO president. Experts say that poorer state and local governments have caused the drop in membership as they fight to curb union bargaining rights. And just recently I covered an article where there was a CEO, a big CEO of a bank or a big company that basically said, I think it was, a European or a British bank, had said that he'd like to see the retirement age lifted to go up higher. And now the U.S. seeks to raise retirement age. So it just goes to show you this is all across the boards. I mean, when something happens in the U.S., it eventually happens in Europe or China, you know. And but these same people, like I said, these Lloyd blank fines and stuff like that, they're going to get all these huge bonuses and stuff like that. And they're going to probably retire when they're When they're like 60. Anything past 60 for them is just, icing on the cake. Or you're going to work until you're 70 just to collect, Social Security. That's not going to adjust for inflation. And you're going to have to get a second job, which a lot of people are doing. That's why there's a lot of younger people that have degrees that can't find work, because there's all these people that are older that were going to retire in 2008. Now they're not. Top American business executives seek to lobby Washington for increasing the country's retirement age while pushing for reforms of the Social Security and Medicare. An influential group of business executives, dubbed the Business Roundtable, has proposed on Wednesday new reforms of the Social Security and Medicare aiming to increase the retirement age to 70. See, the craziness of this, they say that an aging U.S. population, rising healthcare costs threatens to devastate the budget in coming years. Well, initially, we all know this, right, that Social Security was there. Social Security was instituted in, 33? Was it 20 years after Federal Reserve Act was passed? And the U.S. was basically in a file for bankruptcy. So each of us were put up for collateral, and those that weren't even born were put up for collateral as debt. So every person that's born is indoctrinated in education camps that they are there to pay off the deficit, the debt, which will never ever be paid off. So it's already stolen before it's even put in the quote pot, right? The collective pot. So, when you think about it, if the money doesn't really exist to begin with, why can't the government just take money that's being spent on other programs that are useless and put it towards at least, paying those people that paid into it, all these baby boomers, so they still get their money. They just don't have to rely on younger generations to have to pay for it. Reality is, and he's not going to tell you, or Bush ain't going to tell you, whoever the next douchebag that comes into the White House isn't going to tell you, or the next head of the Federal Reserve who really runs the country, they're not going to tell you that, right? That, they're not going to give up. They're not going to give up subsidies to the big farming industry or to the agri industry, to Monsanto, to the transportation and energy industry, BP, oil companies, all those subsidies, all those tax breaks, to the pharmaceutical industry, to the banking industry, like I said, by not having to go through the Federal Reserve System in order to use our currency. It's kind of interesting when you think about it like that. If we just didn't have to pay interest on our own currency, right, we would have money right there, for the Social Security. But they don't want to do that, so it's not profitable, not good for them. Bad business. And unfortunately, most parents, they go through the indoctrination camps because they're promoted to, they're told that, to get ahead, get a job at Kmart, you gotta get a high school diploma, right? I mean, it makes you wonder too, as people get more dumbed down, they literally are more dumbed down now, and you see how they speak, how they can't even write an essay or proper, paper, college paper. freshman year in college, I've seen that. And so, you know, when they say you need to get education, they're talking about actually dumbing you down. I mean, I know there's very intelligent people that are up there in universities and stuff like that that do some decent things. But for the majority, they want to indoctrinate you, and most parents go through that, and so they just perpetuate it by basically handing their kids off to financial bondage. First term, Obama increased debt $50,000 per household, more than 42 presidents and 53 terms combined. That's crazy. Obama increased debt $50,000 per household, more than first 42 presidents. So, pretty crazy. It says here that the debt of the federal government increased by $5.8 trillion, which exceeds the combined debt accumulated under all presidents from George Washington through Bill Clinton. So most of you have already seen this story, but I'll include it just to show how people get exploited. Hostages taken after a 2-minute toilet break rule is imposed on Chinese factory workers. Don't mess with workers' bathroom breaks. That was a lesson a Japanese electronics manufacturer learned after about 1,000 workers at a Shanghai plant were so outraged about a strict new policy limiting toilet time that to 2 minutes that they took managers hostage for more than 24 hours. So pretty crazy. And this is interesting because remember in China, the Apple factory, I think it was, or basically whatever the factory is that makes one of those little technology gadgets, they were at the top, and I think, yeah, they were at the top of the building, and they actually had to put up these little gates around the top of the building so people wouldn't jump off them anymore because they were just being exploited so much. And we're talking about fair trade. Well, this is what fair trade is all about, right? It's they don't call it they call it free trade, not fair trade. Free trade sounds close, but not quite the same. Japan should let elderly hurry up and die, says finance minister. Japanese finance minister said on Monday that the elderly should be allowed to hurry up and die instead of costing the government money for end-of-life Medicare. He also doubles as deputy prime minister, he said, during a National Council on Social Security Reforms. Ooh, Social Security Reforms. Heaven forbid if you are forced to live on when you want to die. You cannot sleep well when you think it's all paid by the government. This won't be solved unless you let them hurry up and die. I don't think that kind of care I will die quickly, he said, adding he left written instructions that his life is not artificially prolonged. You know, it's one thing. It's one thing if you're on a feeding tube, like you said. You know, feeding tube, I guess, would be one thing. Missing a major diagnosis such as a honking tumor in your head, and you go home and die, and the doctors say, they basically dismiss you and just diagnose you with a minor migraine. You know, that's another thing. They call it the death pathway, actually. What is it in Britain? Oklahoma policy bosses should be able to axe smokers. So they're trying to repeal law protecting smokers in Oklahoma. Your boss may soon be able to fire you for an unhealthy habit if one state senator has its way. There currently has a law prohibiting employers from discriminating against smokers, but they have introduced a new bill that would repeal the protection, allow employers to make decisions about hiring, firing, medical coverage based on smoking habits. Well, I guess if they want to do that, I mean, that's fine. It's just, you know, I mean, employers should be able to do whatever they want. I mean, I'm not all that supportive of the whole civil rights thing. That's the best thing they got out of the civil rights movement was to exploit employers and tell them what to do and what they can't do. So, but I mean, if they're smoking, you know, on their breaks, on their designated breaks, and they're smoking at home, not smoking in the office or whatever, then I don't see why that should be an issue. Because what? They say, particularly when you're providing medical benefits. Well, you know what? That's what sucks, is because people, if they were free and they weren't coerced into insurance and all of these different complexes, right, then they would have choices. Then they would be more independent. They would be more prosperous. And they would be able to afford their own medical benefits that would actually be a lot better. And no one would tell them what the hell they can and cannot do on their off time. But it's coercion, it's force, right? They're forcing employers to compensate and provide benefits benefits, right? So, but it's like everything else. It's kind of like gay marriage, right? You start getting into the whole thing about gay marriage and you know, it's all about taxes and filing and stuff like that, joint returns. But it says here, force, and you get into this real divisive crap, which is forcing employers to compensate or provide benefits to smokers at the exact same rates as they do their non-smoking employees is just not fair. So forcing employers to have to provide Medicare and benefits to their employers isn't fair either. So you can just shut the hell up with that whole argument. Wanted, a beautiful woman to seduce business executives and get secret insider information. So someone's trying to hire attractive women to obtain secrets from businessmen, according to an ad posted. So there you go on there. Secret agents needed. You can go in there and check it out. Links will be posted. Hopefully they will, right? But actually, just recently there was a Chinese, there was CIA or intelligence in the United States was actually creating like a bureau or a secret department. Well, not so secret if we know about it, but for businessmen to go out and infiltrate in businesses offshore, including China. New $150 million combat jet is banned from flying in bad weather because it could explode. So F-35 Joint Strike Fighter not allowed to fly within 25 miles of thunderstorms. So that's pretty interesting. I guess technology gets better, right? It's progress. It says JPMorgan embraces offshore Yuan as trading doubles. Offshore trading of China's currency has doubled to at least $6 billion a day, giving investors more confidence to invest in the currency using options. Then we have this. Asian buyers snap up half of London homes. So it goes on here, it says, if you've moved to a newly built apartment in central London, don't be perplexed if your neighbors speak mostly Chinese. See, buyers spent $3.5 billion on apartments undergoing construction in central London, up 22% from the year earlier. Then corrupt Chinese politicians are buying billions in U.S. real estate. As China's new leaders intensify a campaign to root out corruption, thousands of Communist Party officials have been panicked into a fire sale of their illicit properties, while billions of pounds have been smuggled overseas. We keep moving fast, so stick with me here. China's December crude import from Iran, second highest in 2012. So big importing from Iran to China. Iran discovers 14 billion barrels of crude oil reserves. Then you have Iran diplomat threatens strait closure if U.S. chooses war. Iranian ambassador retains right to use Strait of Hormuz as bargaining chip with world powers. It's not just that, but the oil too. The same rhetoric we've been seeing. Russia warns Israel and U.S. against a strike on Iran's nuclear sites. This is right around the election. So this is for the U.S. Natural gas production in the U.S. already exceeds demands, and it may actually become a major exporter of natural gas. And also, as far as oil goes, U.S. could become the largest oil producer in the world by 2020, surpassing Saudi Arabia and Russia. This is the main reason the U.S. has been in the wars in the Middle East and all that is for oil. I'm sure it's many reasons. The U.S. is hooked on it and must get enough of it at a manageable cost to keep the wheels of the economy greased, right? The petrodollar, which is Obama's job, and keep it going. The article goes on and says the biggest loser in all this, if U.S. becomes energy independent, as far as oil goes, would be China. Since U.S. independence from Arabian oil would impact the relationship and balance of power between U.S. and China, according to the report. But unlike the U.S., it won't have the military power, at least not initially, to protect its energy sources and transportation routes. That's interesting, to protect its energy sources. To kill a bunch of people and mutilate them at gunpoint and say, you're going to sell us your oil. Yeah, that's freedom. But Iran would be a big loser too, right? That's one of the cards that they have, the Trump cards. So if the U.S. does start tapping their own oil and stuff like that, they could literally just attack Iran whenever they wanted to. And like I said before, I'll reiterate this, what my grandfather was telling my mother back in the 70s, which was they were there, the U.S. is going to suck up all the oil in the Mideast till they run dry, so they come close to running dry, paying off all the sheiks and the leaders. And at the same time, once they run dry, they get ready to run dry, then they're going to start tapping their own wells, and they're just going to watch the Middle East basically go at each other, because that's their economy. Nebraska okays route for Keystone Pipeline. So controversial long-delayed Keystone Pipeline, oil pipeline, just cleared a major hurdle. Nebraska governor says the state is fine with the alternative route that avoids the environmental fragile area known as the Sandhill. Iraq scores its first oil find in decades. It's actually in 30 years, they said. At least 4 billion of crude under the ground. So it says here that Iraq demands U.S. energy giant ExxonMobil to abide by constitution, i.e. it belongs to all Iraqis and not just the Kurdistan regional government, which is probably why after Assad or post-Assad, happens, you might see an independent Kurdistan state, which will be pro-Zionist, believe it or not. I was talking about this article, what happens to Venezuelan oil when Chavez is gone? Ooh, how can we exploit him? Well, the officials are saying Chavez is laughing, joking, and giving orders, so they didn't kill him yet. No, they didn't. Venezuela's vice president says he's a target of assassination plot. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.